This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about yet another old man yelling at Bitcoin. This, of course, comes from the old meme, Old Man Yells at Cloud, which has been transformed into Old Man Yells at Bitcoin. And what I'm going to be doing in this video is covering an interview with Charlie Munger that a bunch of you have been asking me about. This is an interview I'll link to in the description notes below. It's from Yahoo Finance. Now, Charlie Munger, of course, is Warren Buffett's long-term business partner at Berkshire Hathaway. Very smart guy, at least used to be a very smart guy, but for the past decade, he's been known really for his terrible takes on Bitcoin. And this is disappointing because he's a very, very high IQ individual, but he's repeatedly referred to Bitcoin as rat poison squared, disgusting, stupid, immoral, etc. And this interview really is no different. I thought the interview started out great. He actually talked about how the Roman Empire destroyed itself with hyperinflation and currency devaluation, which we actually just spoke about on this channel the day before. So I recommend watching this video if you want to see the parallels between the American Empire and the Roman Empire. And while you're here, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. So then, after describing this, the interviewer asked him about what he thought would happen to the US dollar. And this is Munger speaking here. I think the safe assumption for an investor is that over the next 100 years, the currency is going to zero. It sounds like he's referring to the US dollar. He may be referring to all fiat currencies in general. So again, this interview started off quite well, talking about hyperinflation, US dollar going to zero, which I agree with. All fiat currencies eventually end up going to zero. So then the interviewer asks him, what does he think of Bitcoin? And he immediately goes into all of the old, well-worn Bitcoin FUD. Bitcoin is the ideal currency. This is Munger speaking. Bitcoin is the ideal currency if you want to commit extortion, kidnapping, etc. This was the point at which I got confused because all of the major corrupt officials who run the central banks, for example, Christine Lagarde over at the ECB, when she was an IMF chief, she got into a little trouble getting payouts in euros. So I actually thought the euros or dollars were the best currency to commit extortion and kidnapping, but they're certainly equally good. Munger goes on to say, why would a civilized government want an ideal, untraceable currency? And here he really shows his ignorance. You can't have it both ways. Bitcoin actually does have a completely open ledger. It's pseudonymous, not anonymous. So there are some ways of getting privacy guarantees, but it's certainly not untraceable. This is the whole point of the Bitcoin blockchain. And if you're actually going to launder money, a much better currency would be the US dollar. And I'm surprised that Munger doesn't remember this because so many of his banks that he and Buffett have been invested in over the years have been involved in money laundering for foreign governments, for drug dealers, etc. And of course, Warren Buffett and Berkshire, longtime holders of Wells Fargo in particular, which has been an absolutely egregious bank, has over the years opened up fake accounts to boost their revenue numbers, etc. So here's the real problem. When you listen to people like Munger and Buffett, who are obviously very wealthy and have been very smart, they grew up in a very particular point in American history, and they've been really gorging at this all-you-can-eat fiat buffet for 70 years. Pun intended. Warren Buffett opens Warren's buffet. Munger, Buffett are what we often call cantillionaires who have benefited directly from money printing and bailouts for decades. The Cantillon effect, or the Cantillon effect, is an economic theory that was put out by Richard Cantillon, saying that those closest to the money printers benefit the most, then everyone else gets inflation. This is what happened in Spain or Portugal, I believe it was, that Cantillon studied, where there was a local gold mine, and those closest to the gold mine got rich, and everyone else just got inflation as the money supply increased and spread out. And so I think this is a better name than billionaires for people like Buffett and Munger, because they really have benefited directly from from fiat. And they've really been at the heart of all this with especially with their bank and other financial services investments. Moody's, which of course was at the heart of the great financial crisis, was a long-term holding of Buffett for many years. I'm not sure if he still holds it, but basically all of the companies that Buffett held, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, etc., all of these banks did receive bailouts up after the great financial crisis of 2008, 2009. And there was this weird situation where Buffett was a very large shareholder, along with Berkshire, in these companies, and yet he was one of the leading proponents of the bailouts, basically bailing himself out. So this is this very sinister thing about Buffett and Munger. They portray themselves as affable old men who like to just have a burger and a milkshake at Dairy Queen, but when in fact they're really at the heart of the evil of the current system. I'll link to another article here that used to be, it looks like it's behind a paywall now, but it was a very interesting article about how Buffett, champion of the bailout, is also a leading beneficiary. So I'll try to link to that in the description notes below. The thing about Buffett and Munger, too, coming in, taking this moral high ground, when also one of their largest investments, of course, has been Coca-Cola, which is obviously people have different views about this. I used to drink this as a kid. I don't drink it anymore, but it's hard to deny the influence of Coca-Cola on many developing countries. Big problem. Yeah, here's an article about in Mexico, how you can't even get water, but you can get Coke everywhere. I've linked before to articles about diabetes and Coke in various Asian countries as well. In addition, Munger fancies himself as an architect, and this is one of the things you can do when you're really rich, is you can offer to build dorms and design them. Unfortunately, the one that he proposed for UC Santa Barbara in California was a building, a dorm for 4,500 people with 0 windows. This really is the ultimate Cantillionaire dystopian future, I guess, that he dreams of. Finally, in the interview, he says he's proud of the fact that he's avoided crypto. I think he means the whole space. I'm proud of the fact that I've avoided it. It's like some venereal disease. And when you're talking about altcoins, I would agree with this. Certainly not Bitcoin, though. I think he is mostly talking about Bitcoin, though, because he goes on to say, I admire the Chinese for banning Bitcoin. I think they were right and we were wrong to allow it. And he's still, you can tell here, he doesn't understand that it's very, very difficult, in fact, impossible to ban Bitcoin. The more you ban it, it goes underground, it goes to other countries, etc. And he also fails to mention that when China banned Bitcoin, one of the main reasons is they're worried about capital flight and surveillance. They want to keep the whole population under control, and there's no better way of doing it than a central bank digital currency, which is just a spy coin. China is ahead of the U.S. in this, if you want to talk about it in those terms, because it's a very bad thing. And what will happen to the U.S. when CBDCs come here? The Federal Reserve will issue its own currency. There'll be no more cash. Every transaction, whether you're getting paid or you're buying something, everything will be traceable by the government through this surveillance coin. Munger says that he is fine with the Federal Reserve launching its own CBDC, but he gets confused in the interview, and he doesn't understand the difference between a digital currency. The US dollar is already digital, but it's not on a blockchain. It's not traceable in the same way as a central bank digital currency. So this is disappointing. Maybe I should cut him some slack because he's, 98 years old or whatever it is. But it is disappointing from someone who holds himself out as an authority and also a very intelligent guy to be making mistakes like this. At one point in the interview, he says that a lot of people think that Buffett and he do not understand Bitcoin, and they're wrong. But his comments really do show that he hasn't done his work, and he's trapped in fiat, which is what you'd expect. You don't expect a guy in his 70s or 80s who's really benefited from the Cantillon effect his whole life. You don't expect him to come to Bitcoin. That would be very rare. There are people like Bill Miller, for example, who's been in finance for a long time and managed to also hop on the Bitcoin train. I have this fantasy about Buffett and Munger that there'll be some sort of Christmas carol at the end of their lives where Charlie Munger is forced to come back and wander the earth looking at all the Coca-Cola being drunk everywhere and seeing all the empty banks, and seeing basically how he made his billions of dollars over his life. I still love this meme. I have to share it again. When Buffett and Munger called Bitcoin rat poison, it is poison for rats. The rats who run Wells Fargo and JP Morgan and Citi and HSBC and Goldman Sachs. There's not going to be a video this Saturday or Sunday, so I'll see you on Monday. And in the meantime, I hope all of you have a happy weekend, especially happy President's Day weekend if you're in the US. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.